Everyone already knows about the Ferris wheel not having reflections on the water, and about this light. But if you actually zoom more into this clip, you can find funny little inconsistencies, mistakes and errors, mostly caused by level of detail, and this being a handmade scene. So these aren't really real problems in the game, rather whoever made this clip did a relatively bad job, and they need to be given new things to do. My name is Saukko, and I had a great midsummer after the announcement. So let me address the Ferris wheel first. The reflection doesn't appear in the water, likely because we are too far away from the Ferris wheel. As in this screenshot, we can see a part of the Ferris wheel reflecting from the water, so the reflections likely appear only when you are closer to it. Then the floating light on the top right isn't something we haven't seen before. We had tons of these in GTA 5 and even more in previous titles, and it's possible that there is actually a thin pole or something which we just don't see in the clip, so I wouldn't worry too much. Then to the interesting ones, which many people actually would not notice, because the video clip and the image they use on the Rockstar Games website is actually very heavily compressed, so extremely low quality. Like if we zoom all the way to the left here, towards the nuclear power plant, and then we switch to the 4K version of the video, we can see that the one used on the website is much lower quality. I'll try to drop the 4K version of the video in the description, as I think that file sharing is already enabled on YouTube, so check that out after the video. But of course even that clip is slightly compressed, so you can never win. The clip does have like an eerie feeling, and like something is missing. It's missing life for some reason. And I might have an explanation, because everything is standing still before the scene begins. So as the creator of this clip presses record, everything in the scene starts moving as planned. This can be most easily seen from the trails of the boats, as in the start of the clip, any of them don't have any trails, or they are extremely short. And as the clip goes on, the trails start appearing behind the boats. So that is the reason why we are not seeing trails like in trailer 1 here. It's just that whoever made this scene did a bad job. Also, the movement of this boat implies that it has gone through this pier, which of course it hasn't, as the pier isn't broken. So this boat has just been placed here, and it's now swimming through the water. And they didn't think what the boat would have been doing before the scene itself. Then the Maverick on the foreground, as I'm pretty sure that that is not how helicopters fly, as it is going pretty fast forward, and it is staying completely level, so it has just been given a flight path without any consideration on how it acts in the air. So the flight of the helicopter looks extremely lifeless. And then if we take a look at, I think, the only moving NPC that is on foot in the scene, as the other 6 or 7 appear to be completely still for some reason, we can see that his movement doesn't make any sense. Or well, technically it does, but it's extremely weird what he does, as he does a U-turn. As he comes into the view in the bottom of the clip, he is first walking to the left, then does a U-turn and starts walking to the right. Where is bro even going? Again, there is no absolute reason for them to do this. Whoever made this scene could have just made them walk in a straight line, instead of turning here for some reason. Then, let's take a look at some of the cars, and more importantly, the cars on the highways in the background, as they aren't real cars. They are basically just a box with front and rear lights. We already had things like this in GTA 5 and I think in previous games too, but basically the point is that this saves computing power, as they don't need to load real cars far away. Like, doing this does make sense. However, there are few pretty obvious problems with these. Firstly, these level of detail models are driving at over 400 km per hour or over 250 miles per hour, which does not make sense. For example, on this bridge, the cars are driving about 500 meters in about 5 seconds, which is about 100 meters per second, which is way too much for a car, at least on a normal highway. Same is happening all the way back here, as these cars are about 7 kilometers away. That's 45 miles, and they have a lot of horizontal speed on our screen. Again, for this to be possible, they would need to be going a few hundred kilometers per hour, more than like 150 miles per hour. And here on Watson Island, yes, a lot of models are going faster than they should. However, on this road here, there are cars that are going lightning speeds, zooming through a random industrial road and probably crashing into things. Then another problem with these moving lights is that we can see them through some things, most evidently probably on this bridge, as if you take a close look at this car, even though it should be going like partly behind the bridge, we can see the light completely, instead of course the part of the bridge that should be in front of it. And then of course otherwise, the movement of these lights is slightly weird, as in several cases there are like dozen cars going in a straight line on a constant speed, with constant gaps to each other. So it just looks like that there's a line of lights that just moves forwards and backwards. And some of the lights are in pretty weird places, like on this bridge, or off the bridge. But yeah, these are just optimization measures, which won't affect your gameplay. They just kind of look weird, but it makes the game look extremely cinematic and cool, without compromising too much computing power, as the gameplay is much more important than trying to look at what happens like over 500 meters away. Then, let's take a look at something bizarre, as there appears to be a floating palm here. I'm currently getting flashbacks to the floating pole in trailer 2. So, the palm has a trunk, as the light from next to it hits it. However, it appears that the part that isn't getting hit by the light is not rendering for some reason, as we can see the white base that is around the palm completely. It's not blocked by the palm from any point. So, it truly looks like that the palm is at least partly floating. However, as we advance the clip, we can see that the base of the palm kinda starts to render in. So, this palm is extremely weird to me. But let's hope that it isn't like this in the final game. Then a bit more about cars, as on this bridge we can see both real cars and fake cars, at the point where they transition from being fake to real, as here we can see a car disappear and then another one appears. However, these happen inconsistently, so it looks like the car teleports for a bit. Then, if we take a look at this road, try to count how many cars you can see disappear and appear during the clip. All I can say that there is a few, and of course these things are for optimization purposes. And then we do have some pretty annoying disappearance acts too. As we are going further away from the city, some of the props and models disappear from the map into thin air, which looks kinda funny. I have found a few, but there are probably dozens of them in this clip. Firstly, these AC units on top of this building, which is the Isola on Teguesta Key. It has these funny AC units on the roof, but unfortunately during the clip they do disappear, so it changes the skyline of Vice City during the clip. And then again on Watson Island, if we take a look at this bush, it disappears during the clip and exposes a bright white thing behind it. This is extremely visible and kind of weird, as nothing else from around it disappears, just that bush only. So the settings for that bush are probably slightly wrong. Then here by the marina, there is a car idling with its lights on, and there are some bollards behind the car. And you guessed right, the bollards do disappear because of LOD. And additionally, this is a double error, as the headlights of the car abruptly change during the clip, which once again is probably because of an LOD, but it looks very weird when zoomed in. Then there are some general issues with the interiors being parallax interiors, so just 2D images that look like 3D images, and some issues with some of the reflections from the water. But I don't have the skills to talk about those, so I'm gonna leave them to someone else like Digital Foundry, who already talked about the reflections. Again, I'm not saying that these things make the game bad, some of them are necessary optimization features. However, whoever made this clip made some kind of unnecessary mistakes for a clip that was released alone, so a lot of people would be looking at it. Thus, I think whoever made this should be promoted to a consumer. Thank you for watching. Subscribe so that you won't miss anything once Rockstar releases Trailer 3 or other stuff. I will also be doing the budget calculations again once we get the prices for the pre-orders. So, subscribe, like the video, and comment if you have something to say. Thank you.